The human brain can only survive minutes without oxygen. After that, irreversible brain damage and death may occur.
Are you okay? Help! Somebody help!
In an emergency, CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, must be started quickly to keep the brain and body alive. CPR is a basic life support technique, effective in situations where breathing and heartbeats stop or are too weak to support life.
He's not breathing and he has no pulse. Call 911.
The purpose of this film is to teach when and how to use CPR.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15.
This film is divided into segments. Each segment explains and demonstrates a portion of CPR. There is a 10-second pause between each segment to allow time to stop and practice if desired.
4 and 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and 12.
The most important part of CPR is to assess the condition of the victim. You must first find out what needs to be done before you do anything to help. We will use the letters A, B, and C to help teach the steps of CPR. Is the victim responsive? If not, A, open the airway. Is the victim breathing? If not, B, give mouth-to-mouth breathing. Does the victim have a pulse? If not, C, restore circulation.
6, 7, and 8, and 9, and 10, and 11, and 12, and 13, and 14, and 15.
I called 911. Help is on the way.
In an emergency situation, immediately assess, is the victim responsive? Tap or gently shake his shoulder and shout,
Are you okay? Are you all right?
If there is no
Help!
response,
Somebody
call
help!
for help. Then turn him gently on his back while controlling the head and neck. Now, A, open the airway using the head tilt chin lift maneuver.
Are you okay? Are you all right? Help! Somebody help!
To do the head tilt chin lift, place one hand on the forehead and the fingers of the other on the bony part under the chin. Now, tilt the head by pressing on the forehead and lifting the chin. This may be all that is necessary to restore breathing. If the mouth is still closed, use your thumb to open it. Once more, let's look at the head tilt chin lift maneuver. With the airway open, assess. Is the victim breathing? Put your cheek and ear over his mouth. Look at his chest and abdomen for movement. Listen for the sounds of breathing and feel for exhaled breath on your cheek. Spend from 3 to 5 seconds checking for breathing. If you are sure he is not breathing, B, breathe for the victim. With the airway open, pinch closed his nose. Take a deep breath, open your mouth wide, and make a tight seal over his mouth. Give 2 slow, full breaths. Watch his chest rise and fall, and let the chest return to normal before giving the next breath. Now, make the next assessment. Does the victim have a pulse? Check the pulse at the carotid artery on the side of the neck closest to you. To find the pulse, place your index and middle fingers on his Adam's apple and slide them into the groove at the side of his neck. Spend from 5 to 10 seconds checking the pulse. The victim is not breathing, but has a pulse. Activate the EMS system and begin rescue breathing.
Not breathing but has a pulse. Call 911.
EMS system stands for the Emergency Medical Services System and may be accessed through a 911 emergency telephone number, the police or fire department. Tell the person who responded to your call for help to call the appropriate agency and give the following information.
Yes, I have an emergency.
Location with cross streets.
I'm at the Rockridge BART station at College Avenue.
Telephone number you are calling from.
The number is 921-0151.
What happened?
A man has collapsed.
The condition of the victim.
He's not breathing but has a pulse.
What aid is being given?
Yes, someone is giving rescue breathing. That's right, the Rockridge BART.
Since there might be questions, the caller should be the last to hang up. Continue rescue breathing for the victim. Give one slow, full breath every 5 seconds. Watch the chest fall and listen for exhaled air. After a minute, stop and check the pulse for 5 seconds. If there is a pulse but still no breathing, continue ventilations and check the pulse every few minutes. If he begins to breathe but remains unconscious, keep his airway open until help arrives. In an emergency, you must assess the situation. Is he responsive?
Are you okay? Are you all right? Help! Somebody help!
If not, open the airway and call for help. Is he breathing? If not, give 2 slow, full breaths. Does he have a pulse? If there is a pulse but no breathing, activate the EMS system.
He's not breathing but has a pulse. Call 911.
Give 1 breath every 5 seconds and frequently check the pulse. If he starts breathing, keep his airway open until professional help arrives.
Are you okay? Are you all right? Help! Somebody help!
The victim is not breathing and does not have a pulse. Activate the EMS system.
He's not breathing. He has no pulse. Call 911.
Now begin C, circulation.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
To perform chest compressions properly, you must find the correct landmark on the breastbone or sternum. First, locate the edge of the rib cage with your middle and index fingers. Slide them up to the notch where the ribs meet in the center of the chest. Place the hand that was on the forehead next to the index finger and your other hand on top. Keep your fingers off the chest. They could break ribs when you compress. Either hold them up or lace them together.
1 and 2.
Your shoulder should be directly over his sternum. Use your body weight to push straight down and keep your elbows straight.
13 and 14 and 15.
After 15 compressions, give 2 slow, full breaths.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Compress the chest of an adult 1.5 to 2 inches. Press down smoothly and come up smoothly, never losing contact.
And 15. One and 2 and
Do not
3
keep
and
pressure
4
on the
and
chest
5
between
and
compressions.
6 and 7 and
Each
8
compression and
9
relaxation should be
11
part of a
12 and
continuous
13 and
movement.
14 and 15.
To time compressions, count quickly.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10.
The rate is
11
fast,
and
80
12
to
and
100
13
times per minute.
And 15. 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, 10 and 11 and 12 and 13.
Check for the return of pulse after the first minute of CPR and every few minutes thereafter. Spend 5 seconds checking the pulse. If you cannot feel a pulse, resume CPR, starting with 2 slow, full breaths.
One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and... Are you okay? Are you all right? Help!
In an emergency,
Somebody help!
it is important to spend the time to assess responsiveness, breathing, and pulse. Never begin chest compressions until you have thoroughly determined that there is no pulse.
He's not breathing and has no pulse. Call 911. One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9.
A relief rescuer enters and says to you,
I've called 911. Help is on the way. I know CPR. May I help?
if you are tired, complete the cycle of 15 compressions and 2 breaths and tell him to take over.
CPR. 6 and 7 and 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, 13 and 14 and 15.
He moves to the head, opens the airway, and checks the pulse for 5 seconds. If there is no pulse, he gives 2 slow, full breaths and begins compressions. You move to the victim's head and monitor the pulse to be sure that the compressions are circulating blood.
8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. 1 and 2 and 3 and
10, 11 and 12.
I called 911.
14,
Help is on the way. I know CPR. May I help?
Yes, I'm exhausted. Get ready to take over CPR. 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11 and 12 and 13, 14 and 15.
If there is a pulse and breathing, keep the airway open and continue checking until professional help arrives.
What do you think? Do you think that was a good move?
Oh, I think it's awful. Eisenhart's a fool. He doesn't know anything.
That's
Baseball, he
that's-
knows about making rebounds.
You're having dinner in a restaurant and your friend begins to choke.
Oh, no.
What should you do? If he is coughing forcefully, leave him alone. Coughing is the best way to remove an obstruction. If he is grasping at his throat and not coughing forcefully, assess his condition.
Can you say anything? Are you choking?
A person with a blocked airway cannot breathe, cough, or
Get me
speak.
some help, quick.
Call for help and begin the Heimlich maneuver. To perform the Heimlich maneuver, move behind him and wrap your arms around his waist. Locate the navel and the tip of the sternum. Make a fist with one hand and place the thumb side against his abdomen, slightly above the navel, but well below the tip of the sternum. Now, grasp your fist with the other hand and press it up into the abdomen with a quick upward thrust. Be sure that your arms do not press against the ribs. Each new thrust should be a separate and distinct movement. Continue the Heimlich maneuver until the obstruction is removed or the person becomes unconscious.
Either the lights on.
No.
Bottom of the division. It's terrible.
Jim, what's wrong? Are you all right? Are you choking? Can you say anything? Help! Get me some help!
If the victim becomes unconscious while you are giving him the Heimlich maneuver, turn him on his back and
Help!
immediately call
He's
for
got an
help.
obstructed airway. Call 911.
Then, put your thumb in the victim's mouth to lift his jaw and tongue. Sweep deeply into his mouth with your index finger from cheek to cheek. If you cannot remove the object, attempt to ventilate. If the airway is still blocked, straddle the victim's thighs and perform the Heimlich maneuver. Place the heel of one hand against the midline of the abdomen, slightly above the navel, but well below the tip of the sternum. Place the second hand directly over the first and press into the abdomen with 6 to 10 quick upward thrusts. Each thrust must be separate with the intent of relieving the obstruction. Again, sweep the mouth for the obstruction and attempt to ventilate. If the airway is still blocked, repeat the sequence.
One, two, three.
What do you do if your own airway becomes blocked? If you are with others, let them know by holding one hand to your throat. This is the distress signal for choking. If you are alone or no one comes to help, give yourself the Heimlich maneuver. You can do this by pressing your fist into your abdomen and giving upward thrusts until the object is dislodged. You can also use a firm object, such as a chair, to try and dislodge an obstruction.
Hey, are you okay? Are you all right?
If you find someone who is unconscious, begin the steps of ABC.
Help! Somebody get some help!
If you are unable to ventilate, reposition the head and try again. The most common reason for ineffective ventilations is the incorrect positioning of the head. If you still cannot ventilate, give the Heimlich maneuver. Straddle the victim and give 6 to 10 thrusts. Then use the tongue-jaw lift to open the mouth. Sweep deeply, then attempt to ventilate. Repeat the thrusts, sweep of the mouth, and ventilation until the obstruction is removed. You must be able to inflate the lungs before checking for a pulse.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
The ABCs of CPR are the same for children, but be very careful with compressions and the Heimlich maneuver.
Are you okay? Help!
Once you have determined the child is not breathing, give 2 slow, full breaths. These should be smaller than for the adult. Then check the pulse at the carotid artery.
Call 911. Has a pulse but no breathing.
If the child has a pulse but is not breathing, give 1 breath every 4 seconds. If chest compressions are necessary, locate the landmark on the sternum and give compressions with the same hand. Keep the airway open with the other hand. Give 5 compressions and 1 ventilation.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
Visually relocate the position on the sternum each time.
And 4 and 5.
Use the heel of the hand to compress the chest. The rate is 80 to 100 per minute. And the sternum must be compressed 1 to 1.5 inches.
1 and 2 and
It is most important to continually keep the airway open.
1 and 2.
If the child has an obstructed airway, use the same techniques that are used for an adult.
Call 911. Block the airway.
If you cannot give the thrust from the feet, straddle the victim.
One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and...
After you
8
give the
and-
thrusts, look in the mouth but do not sweep unless you see an obstruction.
One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
Rescue breathing for infants is similar to adults. Begin the ABCs of CPR. Is the victim responsive?
Are you okay? Are you okay?
If there is no crying or movement, call for help.
Help! Someone help!
Then, open the airway, but not as far as for the adult. Look, listen, and feel for signs of breathing. If there is no breathing, cover her mouth and nose with your mouth and give 2 gentle breaths. Watch the chest rise and fall, and give the second breath after the chest has deflated. Now, check the pulse at the brachial artery. Put your fingers on the inside of the upper arm and check the pulse for 5 to 10 seconds. Then activate the EMS system.
There's a pulse but no breathing. Call 911.
If there is a pulse but still no breathing, give 1 breath every 3 seconds and frequently check the pulse.
Are you okay? Are you okay? Help! Someone help! There's a pulse but no breathing. Call 911. There we go. There we go. There we go.
What should you do if your infant's airway
Okay.
becomes obstructed?
You okay?
If she cannot cry, cough, or breathe,
Help,
immediately
somebody
call
help.
for help. Then give 4 back blows. Then give 4 chest thrusts. Place her face down over your forearm, resting on your thighs. With her head down, give 4 back blows, forcefully between the shoulder blades with the heel of one hand. Carefully turn her over with the head lower than the body. Give 4 quick chest thrusts mid-sternum, 1 finger's width below the imaginary nipple line. Support her head by firmly holding the jaw. Repeat the sequence of 4 back blows and 4 chest thrusts until the obstruction is removed or the baby becomes unconscious. If she becomes unconscious,
Help, someone
activate
help.
the EMS system. Then Lift the tongue and jaw together and look for the obstruction. If you see the object, remove it. But if you cannot see anything, do not sweep the mouth. Attempt to ventilate. If the airway is still blocked, deliver 4 back blows, then give 4 chest thrusts. Look for the obstruction and repeat the procedure until the obstruction is removed or professional help arrives.
Are you all right? Help! Someone help! Help! Someone help! You all right? Oh, good. There we are.
That's better.
Are you okay? Somebody help!
If there is no breathing and no pulse, activate the EMS system and begin CPR.
There is no breathing and there is no pulse. Call 911.
Slide one hand under the baby's back. Place 2 or 3 fingers on the sternum, 1 finger's width below the nipple line. Compress the infant's chest 1/2 to 1 inch. The rate is fast, at least 100 times a minute. Give 1 gentle breath after every 5 compressions. Stop to give the breath and watch the chest deflate before continuing with CPR. Make sure that you do not lose skin contact with the chest and that the compressions are even. At the end of a minute, stop and check the pulse. Frequently check the pulse during the rescue. Two-rescuer CPR is primarily used by healthcare and rescue professionals.
Are you all right? Are you okay? Help! Somebody help! No pulse, no breathing. Activate the EMS. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Code Blue, 3rd floor, OBGYN clinic.
5 and 6 and 7.
When a second
8,
rescuer
9,
arrives on the
10,
scene, have
11,
them take over
12,
compressions.
13, 14, 15.
You move to the head and reassess the pulse. The second rescuer moves to the chest, finds the landmark on the sternum, and waits for instructions.
Continue compressions.
Then, give a breath. The second rescuer begins compressions, counting out loud. After every fifth compression, he pauses to let you give one slow, full breath. After the victim's chest falls, he begins compressions again. While he is compressing, you can check the victim's pulse to see if the compressions are circulating blood. As the rescue continues, fatigue sets in. To maintain effective CPR, switch positions. The compressor starts the switch by saying,
change and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
He opens the airway and checks the pulse for 5 seconds. You find the landmark on the sternum.
Begin compressions.
Do not begin compressions until he tells you what to do.
4, 5.
After a few minutes, check the pulse. If there is a pulse, but still no breathing, give one slow, full breath every 5 seconds and frequently check the pulse.
3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, and 14, and 15. Begin compressions.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Change and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Begin compressions.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3,